It's only at the end of an affair, when we unravel nothing of ourselves but only begin to fathom the deceit of others. How his words touch me still. Often, when you reach the end of a man's story, and you are tasked with the conservation of his enterprise, it is not uncommon to feel, after all the tears have been reduced to a solid residue in the shaving mirror's morning apparel, when no more clichés seem to fit, or haven't already been uttered, that your recollection or understanding of the man in question is diminished by your own acquaintance. I could more easily draw you a picture of him out of mere rumour and hearsay than from any real interaction I ever had with him. But there is one thing I know for sure. I know he is still there. Those dreadful hands playing on that dreadful ironwork piano. His spindly, spider-like body hunched over the fingerboard as he plays his muted symphony to the walls of his freezing garret. The muffled beat of the space bar sings the chorus of misery from his land that he failed to save from itself. Because he will always be trapped there, frozen in a moment he will always claim as his, before that reality kicks in, when failure firmly becomes an option. And there, I'm happy to leave him. For now, anyway, to his eponymous work. But it is odd for me when I reflect on this poor, broken creature, night after night, silently plying his trade to no avail, especially when I consider that this man was once. The Kilburn Street Theatre presents One Scoop Cone, written by Sebastian Andrews and read by Rosa French. Was once plagued by these images of ghosts and mice moving through his peripheral vision and out into the crowds and the cold, empty, stagnant flats. I see fragments shift and fuse together to resemble your face. You're the man outside the restaurant, the shadows flickering in my room, the joined-up mass moving around a flea circus, and I swear I see you. And inside this nightmare in my head, even there we still argue. As we now whisper a silent goodnight to our wayward youths. Bon voyage, bon voyage, bonne nuit, bonne nuit. Hey, hey. Those unwanted children of provincial Europe, a dysphoria spilling out of time, as he called it, towards the bright golden streetlights, Dante's hell manifested on earth, and the whole world of working class, obsessed Britain, to be our prophetic guide, in a travel book nobody wants to walk into. But where are the angels guiding the pilgrims? Those upper-class destructions of heaven's orchestral choirs, drapes them on the lamp-posts of the high road, speared and with their wings cut off by those wishing to emulate the flight of Icarus, up to heaven the fast way. A commodity to be bought and sold. Get your emancipation here, paving the way to Thomas's drunk tank engine. A room that became a cage, projecting stars from the carousel across the ceiling. A place where I thought we had tucked up that Peter Pan figure for his eternal sleep with his final bedtime story, shivering under the sheets with a line of shiny 5-pence pieces from the windowsill, nestling in the clavicle bone as Bambi is now caught decisively in the crosshairs. Turning inwards our jacket's insignia before daring ourselves to place that final good-night kiss on the child's forehead. Putting the locked tail of an albatross back, high up on the shelf, next to the caterpillar and the bud-splattered songs of innocence, the mantra of the lion and the rhinoceros. As our yesterday's children voicelessly singing the nursery rhyme. We are making a new world. Falling, now silently on deaf ears. When our girls carry in the 27 lights, the cake dons a shabbier virginity. There is no strength left in those martyred lungs, riddled by the acupuncture marks of experience, to extinguish those trick candles. They burn to waxy stubs and wick ash. As the descending gloom is exchanged for the last sparks of light, imploding into black hole vanishing points that only linger briefly as white dwarfs burnt into our retina, that dance to our rising prayers, twisting heaven and earth, and we see through our tardy eyes that this isn't happening for us. Pouring artistic endeavour into a God-shaped hole. But which sprawl is calling me back? Decline never looked so decrepit caught in this transcendental wake of this whitewashed Bloomsbury Americana. Homemade stitches and back to the lifeless dram. Walk with me, here again on this other one-sided atrium's view, putting on these pastel pleasantries in the orangery, haunting my repapered dreams. The cuckoo chorales his last breath within an eternity belonging in step with his serpentine-shaped figurines. Those last night trains figure greatly in my weariness, bombed by tinsel, into lightless subsonic bars, broken only by a cancer and my failing vernacular, which I would have killed for and known all too well about, bleeding, bleary-eyed, counting mental arithmetic in a dialectic that turns day into night, dropping drowsy candy pillows like aspirin, fighting the Red River, running cheap, striking a match at the wrong target, hypothetic crimson knuckles murmur and await the morning of valour. A freshly shaved face reverberates from the brown chapstick kisses and the fading lip gloss marks. The calling cards of a famous lamppost painter, employing pointless bruises on the pretty boys' faces, cantankerous young men, which fall forever womanly into pubs, always to remain 21 and idle, while amid the market's approved bullion belief in the general public amenities covered with crimson petals, tempting nightly deeds, that divinity, that now dribbles in rivulets down my chest, finding the deltas of Christ's veritas. Blood in the wine, hypnagogic hallucinations, in bed with Molly. The leg jolts in spastic shock with the electrical synapses flaring. The day I knew it was over. I wore lilac and stared at a taxidermy hedgehog in the kitchen basement of a once great writer's house. I named him Sebastian, and thought he'd look better, caught in the plastic rings of his beer cans, drowning now and in a recycled ocean. But a few weeks later I found one of his toes on the floor, and I said nothing because it's impossible to fight for a future you're no longer invested in. A brief man existed, once before time, which departed these streets at 5:30 a.m. via number 98 bus. Oh, his destination? He was heading for a palatial paradise beneath a hillside's rising cemetery. Now, to many his existence was of no importance, a passing candle in the night and nothing more. Therefore, he was of no consequence, especially when he was called back to the bar for another round of litigation, a call he answered once too often. His legacy is now held in a fading photograph, taken long ago, that lists all the ghostly faces, unremembered outside a poltergeist's lodgings. That was once formerly a shoe emporium, standing on the site of a feline's fall into suburbia, screaming. A failing view that decreases in depth when it is juxtaposed against the blurring whiz of the flash bulbs of immediacy. Say cheese. Just as tumbling from a ladder into a kaleidoscope hurts far less than shifting through a prism. Down, down they fall, to where Molly's high is still crying, and we're all still labouring in the same delusions of Murphy's kings digging cash in hand for gold through gas mains and untilled fields of temporary lighting. But I don't remember her ever being warm in that rigid, cold leather jacket's rigor mortis. Being pillion pilot, driven around Manchester with the wind in my hair and being shown the sights of a forgotten return. A return home to the cold comfort of the brothel's repeater, casting lemonade light hewn across a room, leaving intervals of darkness in which to move and then to hide within. A perverse game of blind man's buff. I watch them dislocate their jaws. How they squeak when they are hurt. I share their plight. These mice are trapped inside a mechanical maze of a distant past. What is it that you need from me again? The transience of a material rooted to an unmovable, natural aspect. In rooms shifting occupation and usage over time. Shadow walls torn down as she reads to me in bed. Memory is the inability to contain a physical reality in which we are no longer present. But it also contains a form of truth, absolute truths. Stones are made of sand timers, which can be cobbled together to form a building, but we don't remember each corresponding brick. We remember a shadow of the whole, an echo or a fingerprint warped in space-time. And if reality, therefore, is formed in part by memory, all reality is intrinsically inaccurate. It's only via the passing of time that we conceive of this idea of being awake, separating ourselves from our defenceless unconscious state. But our dreams are so formed by extraction of reality and a misremembered past. Those mice in your peripheral vision are writing plot synopses for when your head hits the pillow and you're unable to ward them off. Tick, tick, tock, and up to the coffee cup. When those delusions fade quickly and pass out of reach, something that was once so physical has transformed into an idea, a concept of what we term as happiness. Finding whispers of past lives as I clean out the attic's headspace, trying to throw away what is surplus to reminiscence. Those broken and abandoned furniture projects that just needed a lick of green paint. Sit still in my room unfurnished. Architectural guides plotting routes to work through Blake's backyard sadly never followed. This particular dream concept I imparted from an avocado bathroom suite, full of vodka, lost, somewhere in Stoke Newington. The day I knew it was over, I saw a mauve-shaped elephant in the kitchen laughing bitterly to himself, whilst hiding behind my kettle. But he did occasionally venture out from his hiding place to vomit freely into my sink.